to the Park2Park podcast, where we compare theme park offerings from coast to coast. We don't always see eye to eye, but in the end, we'll try. I'm Alli, and as always, I'm joined by CJ. How are you, CJ?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Tonight, we are talking about something where my nerd flag is going to fly so high into the sky. We are going to be talking about all things Star Wars. We've got Galaxy's Edge, Rise of the Resistance, and the Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run. We've got Star Tours, and we've got the Star Wars Launch Bay, and I am just, hyped for this episode.
Yeah, I know. This is like your favorite non-Disney IP that exists in Disney.
Yes. Yes, that is an accurate statement.
Although I guess now that Disney bought it, it's a Disney IP.
Yeah, it's technically a Disney IP now, but it wasn't originally. Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm really excited. So I kind of just want to jump right into it. We're gonna go in opening date order for these attractions, which means we get to talk about Star Tours: The Adventure Continues first. So let's jump right in with CJ's favorite thing about Star Tours: The Adventure Continues at Disneyland. Go.
I like that it usually has a short line. I'm not
Okay.
the biggest fan of this ride. Since they changed it to the 3D version, it's hard for me to handle this one. It makes me a little bit dizzy. So the Star Tours ride, I'll go on it if there's a short line, which it usually does have.
Motion simulators can be rough. So
Yeah,
I
and then
I
and
get
then
that.
and then they add the 3D element. It's a little much for me, but I like
Yeah.
that it does usually have a short line.
And what about the Hollywood Studios version?
The outdoor portion of the queue is really cool.
Yeah,
So
it's
much better
really
than
well
the
themed.
Disneyland version.
Yeah.
What
My
about
favorite
you?
thing, my favorite thing about the Disneyland version, I like when you get inside the building and you've got the arrivals and departures board and the ads that say, "Hey, come visit Naboo, come visit Coruscant," and all that sort of thing. I think that's really clever. It really builds the atmosphere. And for Hollywood Studios, I really like the app in the queue.
Mm.
I just think that is so cool. You know exactly where you are when you see
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So at Disneyland, Star Tours opened on January 9th, 1987. Star Tours closed in July of 2010 and reopened as Star Tours: The Adventure Continues in May of 2011.
And at Hollywood Studios, the original version opened December 15th, 1989, and it closed to change over in September 2010 and then reopened May 2011. Fun fact, I was at Disneyland opening day for the new Star Tours. We waited 3 hours in line.
Nice. I know that I got on some soft opens for that. I don't know if I was there on opening day or not. I assume I was, but
No, I was with Devin. You weren't with us. It was the same day the Little Mermaid ride opened at DCA, and we also waited 3 hours for that ride.
that's a lot of waiting
For the
for
Little
two
Mermaid?
rides.
Yeah,
For two rides, you waited approximately 6 hours.
we did.
That's rough, buddy.
It is. Yes.
So let's jump into some fun facts here. Disneyland was open for 60 straight hours when Star Tours first opened because it was just so darn popular. It was the first attraction based on a non-Disney IP. And in the creation of this, Disney Imagineers purchased 4 military grade flight simulators to design the ride. Some of the new scenes don't really fit in the canonical timeline of Star Wars. They don't really, it just doesn't add up timeline wise. However, George Lucas okayed these scenes, even though it disrupts the canon. So if George Lucas says go, we go. John Williams determined that no new music was necessary for Star Tours: The Adventure Continues, but suggested use of some original film scores, and he also dug up some unused passages from the original film scores to contribute to the ride.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So in Hollywood Studios, if you've been on the ride before, you know that you'll exit right through the gift shop. And the original name of that gift shop was called the Endor Vendors, which I think is a really clever name. But in 1999, they changed it to Tatooine Traders to correspond with the release of the new movie, Phantom Menace. When the original version of the ride closed in 2010, Hollywood Studios hosted a special ticketed event called The Last Tour to Endor on August 14th. And after that, after the park closed, this special event took place, and even George Lucas was there. There were dance parties, character meet and greets, etc. Basically a Star Tours party. But the ride remained open for a few more weeks, and it officially closed to park guests on September 7th. On that night, September 7th, D23 members had a special event. They got a commemorative boarding pass for the final flight to Endor, and they got a personal stormtrooper escort to Star Tours for one final ride. And then Boba Fett shut down the ride with a thermal detonator. And we got that information from allears.net.
And a little bit from Wikipedia as well.
All right.
In Disneyland, you can find Star Tours in Tomorrowland on the right-hand side across from Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters.
And in Hollywood Studios, it's in a land called Echo Lake next to the Backlot Express restaurant.
Entering the queue in Disneyland, you start outdoors in Tomorrowland switchbacks. If the line is long enough, you'll enter a small building where there are more switchbacks before going back outside to where you were before. Then you enter the airport type area where you got the departure board, you got R2D2 and C3PO working on the Star Speeder. There's the luggage scanning droid, and he's chatting to people about how much he loves his job. You go up a ramp, you get your glasses, and you are directed to your boarding area.
So the Star Tours queue at Hollywood Studios is similar, except for the outside. In Hollywood Studios, you start outside in the Forest of Endor, and you pass underneath a giant AT-AT, and there's some cues there to indicate that you're walking through a movie set, because if you turn around and look, if you look at the trees and if you look at the AT-AT, the beams inside are exposed, and it'll say things like Star Tours Imperial Walker. So it's playing into that Hollywood Studios theme, which is, I think that's pretty cool. Then you enter in the show building where you see the Star Speeder, R2D2, C3PO, that departures arrivals board, and then C3PO and R2D2 are talking to each other. Then you see the TSA security droid chattering, and people are traveling through there, and there's the luggage scan. And then you pick up your glasses and you're directed to the boarding area.
The music you hear when you're outside at Disneyland, you get the Tomorrowland music. It's very spacey, but once you're inside the building, you get some Star Wars. In addition, as I mentioned before, the departure board will occasionally play ads that advertising things such as daily departures to the tranquil planet of Naboo, places you might want to visit in the Star Wars universe.
And at Hollywood Studios, the exterior is mostly Star Wars music, but you're outside, so you're going to hear other things going on. The inside is Star Wars music, just like at Disneyland, and then you hear the same chatter that you'd hear at Disneyland as well.
So CJ, why don't you give us the ride vehicle info, because I get the feeling that I'm going to do all of the storyline.
So in both parks, you're riding in the same vehicle. It's called the Star Speeder 1000. It seats 40 people. So this ride has a pretty high occupancy. There's 5 rows. The big difference here is Disneyland only has 4 Star Speeders. So when you're boarding, you're sent to either gate A, B, C, or D, whereas at Hollywood Studios, there are 6 Star Speeders. So you can go to A, B, C, D, E, or F.
So the attraction's inaugural opening had an opening crawl, just like you would see at the beginning of a Star Wars movie. And there was some information portrayed that after the dark times began, Captain Wedge Antilles dispatched C-3PO and R2-D2 to assist in the opening of the Star Tours space line. The close relationship between, or the seemingly close relationship between the Rebel Alliance and the Star Tours agency caused the Galactic Empire to get a little sus and monitored the Star Tours agency actions over the years, which kind of explains why, the whole intro sequence to the ride. There are 54 different possible ride combinations, and I'm not gonna break down all 54, but I'm gonna break down each of the options a little bit. So first of all, your first segment is when a rebel spy is confirmed to be on your Star Tours ship, and it is somebody in your ship, and they do a little picture of them. I have been the rebel spy once. I was yawning in my photo. It was very unfortunate, but I was the rebel spy, and I was proud of it. There are 3 different possible scenes for determining the rebel spy, and 2 of those have minor variations. You might see, like, a character that you recognize running around in the background. But you escape the holds of the Galactic Empire, jump to hyperspace, and you can end up on one of these planets. Kashyyyk, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but that's the Wookiee planet. Hoth, the snow planet. Jakku, which is where Rey is from and features heavily in the beginning of Force Awakens. Heth Bur, which is where the second Death Star crashed. It's that oceany planet from, oh, I don't remember if it was episode 8 or episode 9, but it's the oceany planet where the second Death Star crashed. And you can also go to Tatooine, where you join a pod race. After you leave those planets, your ship gets a transmission from either BB-8, Princess Leia, Admiral Akbar, Yoda, Poe Dameron, Maz Kanata, or Lando Calrissian. Then you'll arrive at your second planetary destination. You can end up on Naboo, where you get an underwater journey with the Gungans before you dock. Crate, which is the mineral planet with the red dust from The Last Jedi that just looks like really, really cool visually. Coruscant, where there's a whole bunch of traffic. It's a very metropolitan area. Exegol, which I might have pronounced wrong. We don't talk about this planet. It's where all that weirdness happened in Rise of Skywalker that like nobody wants to talk about. It's where Rise of Skywalker a lot of the action took place. You can end up in the Geonosis asteroid belt, where you're pursued by Boba Fett and his ship Slave One. 2 of these also include an additional jump to hyperspace, where you will end up in either Batuu in the Black Spire Outpost or Spaceport THX-1138. Then you'll disembark after C-3PO says something witty.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of options there.
So as far as the exit queue goes, they're both pretty similar. You dump off your 3D glasses in the bin and go into a gift shop.
Yep.
I think it's interesting though, because at Hollywood Studios, you go right to the gift shop, and at Disneyland, you go left to the gift shop.
Well, I think we determined in our Big Thunder episode that everything is mirrored.
Yeah, makes sense. The height requirements are the same at both of them, 40 inches. They're both open during the fireworks, open during the rain. They both offer a lightning lane, although at Hollywood Studios, it's kind of a waste of a lightning lane, not gonna lie. Neither one of them offer single rider, although at Disneyland, they were testing it for a while, a very short period of time right before the parks closed. But they don't currently offer it.
Yeah, I don't see it working very well, honestly.
No, I don't think so. I would like for them to work it out. I think at
Yeah.
Disneyland there might be need for it. I just feel like at Hollywood Studios it's not necessary because there's 6 star speeders, but at Disneyland with them having 4, it might make sense. I just don't see them having the space for that queue.
Yeah, I'm been trying to think through my head where would you put it.
Mhm.
And I feel like you would end up going through the exit, and that would also interfere with wheelchair queue, because that's wheelchairs board through the exit at Disneyland, and it just
Oh, they do?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. At Hollywood Studios, the wheelchairs go through a completely different line.
I remember that when I went to last time I was at Hollywood Studios, my friend needed to rent a wheelchair because her ankle was like twice the size it should have been. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So that brings us to the Star Tours showdown. We've laid out all the facts. The rides are exactly the same. So, how do you have an opinion on what
Yes,
is better,
I do.
CJ?
I
thought
do.
you might. You have opinions on everything.
I'm going with Hollywood Studios has the better version. Um, the location of the Disneyland one is weird. I don't know if it belongs in Tomorrowland anymore. I think Tomorrowland has a huge identity crisis, and I don't know if Star Wars stuff has a place in Tomorrowland anymore. That's one problem I have with it. And the queue is very boring. Like if the line is long, you're just doing switchbacks either outside or in that room that just has a mural in it. Plus the capacity of the line, or I'm sorry, the capacity of the ride, they've got 4-star speeders, so Hollywood Studios wins on capacity. And
Yeah.
the queue for Hollywood Studios is so much better.
Yeah. And I did have an opinion before you stated that you had an opinion, and I do agree with you. Hollywood Studios has a cooler queue, although I don't actually like that they make it to be like, oh, it's a set of Star Wars, because you get in and you're like, I'm in Star Wars. So I wish that they hadn't made it set like, but that is so cool. But yeah, higher capacity, cooler queue. Hollywood Studios takes the win on this
Mhm.
one.
I like too how when you exit to the gift shop, it's not just a Tomorrowland themed gift shop. It's like Tatooine Traders. They're extending the theme to the exit gift shop.
Mhm.
Good job, Hollywood Studios. Yay.
Yeah. So moving on, we've got the Star Wars Launch Bay, which isn't a ride. It's an attraction.
It sounds like a ride, like they're
Yeah,
gonna launch you somewhere.
it sounds like the Maliboomer.
Yes. If you don't know what the Maliboomer is, you should look it up.
Yeah. Needless to say, I never rode the Maliboomer.
I did.
I know.
I got stuck on it once.
Uh, at the top, or
You know how it went like up and down and kind of like slowly brought you back down, like bouncing, like slowly
I
rebounding
mean, I
down?
try to block it out of my memory, but yes.
So we went all the way up once, then all the way down, and then halfway up, and it kind of like stopped and slowly brought us down instead of doing that like bounce till you get to the bottom.
Yeah, no, don't like that.
It was
Don't like that
fun.
one bit. Let's go back to Star Wars, which I do like a whole lot. So, CJ, favorite thing about the launch bay at Disneyland?
I like that it's in a historic building that has not been torn down.
Just in case you didn't know, CJ does not like Star Wars. With the caveat that I have not been to Star Wars Launch Bay at either Disneyland or Hollywood Studios. For Disneyland, I put that it's got a lot of Star Wars history. Like it's got set pieces and props. Well, maybe not set pieces, but props and costumes. And it's kind of like a little mini Star Wars museum.
Yes, it is.
What about Hollywood Studios?
It's a good place to meet characters with no wait. I
Okay.
mean, I've only been in there once or twice, but the times that I have been in there, it's like not that crowded.
Okay.
Maybe I just got lucky, but it hasn't been that busy. And it's air conditioned, so if it's blazing hot or like raining or something, it's a good place to go.
Yeah. Since I haven't been, what I put for the Hollywood Studios launch bay is probably that it's inside is my favorite thing. I don't know because I haven't been to either one.
You should go to the Hollywood Studios one.
Well, my next Hollywood Studios trip is in April, and we're gonna be very, very busy that day. That
Yes.
said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get sent in there.
Yes.
So we'll see. At Disneyland, the Star Wars launch bay opened November 16th, 2015, and might be closed, honestly.
I think it is. I have a fun fact about the opening of that.
Okay.
So I believe this opened as part of Season of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
When I was a cast member, I was covering the media event for that, and I got to escort some media person around at the Season of the Force event. And the Orange County Register took a picture of me while my media person was conducting an interview in Launch Bay. And the caption on the picture called me a cast member who was, quote, milling about in the Star Wars Launch Bay.
Wow.
I was not milling about. I held my clipboard. I held the lady's stuff while she was doing her interview, and I was listening to make sure she was using proper Disney jargon.
You were doing your job, in other words.
I was not just milling about as the OC Register accused me of doing.
Rude.
Anyways. Okay, Hollywood Studios Launch Bay opened December 4th, 2015. So just like 3 weeks after the Disneyland version.
Yeah. So at Disneyland, this used to be the Carousel of Progress, then the Interventions, then the Interventions Dream Home, then the Superhero HQ. Star Wars Launch Bay occupied the lower level from November 2015 to March 2020 when the park closed and is still listed as temporarily unavailable.
So I'm just now realizing I forgot to look up fun facts for the Hollywood Studios Star Wars launch bay, but I'm pretty sure one of them is you used to be able to draw characters in there.
Oh, cool, like the Animation Academy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that used to be in there.
Honestly, the Star Wars launch bay, it's not the highlight of this episode, so I think we can move on without that.
Okay, fair enough.
At Disneyland, it's in the Innoventions building in the back of Tomorrowland between Autopia and Pizza Planet Space Mountain area.
Yes, for our Magic Kingdom friends, it is located roughly where Space Mountain is in Magic Kingdom.
Yes.
In Hollywood Studios, it's in the back of the animation courtyard next to the Disney Junior show, because that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. To be fair, there are a lot of animated Star Wars shows that are pretty good. I haven't seen them, but I trust my husband that he's watched the Clone Wars animated show like twice and really liked it. And yeah,
Do they sing the hot dog song?
I don't think there are hot dogs in the Star Wars universe.
All right. Oh, but there's Ronto roasters.
There are Ronto roasters, but those are not hot dogs.
All right.
Anyways, there's not typically a queue to get into the building at the launch bay at Disneyland. The queues inside are simple switchbacks in Star Wars themed rooms. The exterior of the building is circular, futuristic looking, and it's got Star Wars launch bay signage arching over the entrance.
Yeah, similar story at Hollywood Studios. There's some queues inside to meet the characters. It's a very large gray building. It's very kind of corporate looking, to be honest. And the walkway leading up to it is flanked by palm trees.
Surprise, surprise, for both of these, you get Star Wars music in the queue and in the area and in the building.
Yes.
I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No. What can we do inside?
Well, according to the Disneyland website, which still has this listed live, go behind the scenes of Star Wars The Last Jedi and get an up-close look at actual props, costumes, and authentic replicas created specifically for Star Wars Launch Bay. Watch an exclusive documentary on the creative team behind this ever-evolving cultural phenomenon. Wander around the Mos Eisley Cantina. Test your skills by playing the latest Star Wars video games. Peruse Star Wars memorabilia and merchandise in the shop. There's also a Disney Visa cardholders meet and greet that is, according to CJ, usually Darth Vader.
Yeah, I think sometimes Chewbacca is in there.
I could have sworn I met Kylo Ren in there one time too.
I don't know.
Chewbacca, I do recall, but I think the one time I went there, I was wearing my Darth Vader dress, and we met Kylo Ren, and I want to say he made a comment about my Darth Vader dress.
All right. Well, at the launch bay at Hollywood Studios, you can also meet characters. There's also a Visa cardholder meet and greet, which I haven't done at Hollywood Studios, not in a long time. So from the website, here's what they say. Explore immersive exhibits of costumes, models, concept artwork, and actual movie props, as well as authentic replicas created just for Star Wars Launch Bay. Tour a cantina and other settings inspired by the films, then share a furry embrace with Chewbacca, Han Solo's trusty sidekick, go toe-to-toe with Darth Vader, the menacing Dark Lord of the Sith, and meet up with the astromech droid on duty, BB-8.
I think it's funny that they define who Chewbacca, Darth Vader, and BB-8 are.
Yeah, in case you didn't know. Now you know.
Fireworks. At Disneyland, this is where the Tomorrowland Skyline Terrace dinner package is. It is $60 per person to view the fireworks and eat dinner.
I actually think that's a pretty good value.
Yeah?
Because
maybe not for little kids, but for adults, yeah.
I'm just thinking about the price of the fireworks dessert parties at Magic Kingdom, and this you get full dinner, and it's cheaper than the dessert parties.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that's a better value. Granted, you're not right on top of the castle like you are at Magic Kingdom, but this is, on the second story of the launch bay. Mm-hmm. It's very private.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair value. Hollywood Studios Launch Bay, I looked at the hours for this, and it's typically closing earlier than park close by 3 or 4 hours. And I would guess that they're doing this because they're just not getting the foot traffic, so why pay the cast members to keep it open? This is another cost-cutting measure that the company is doing.
Both of these are a great place to go during the rain and do not have a lightning lane unless there's a lightning storm, in which case all the lanes are lightning lanes. But yeah, there's no point in having a lightning lane. It's like a mini museum. Just
Yeah.
go in. Showdown time. Do we need to do a showdown for this?
The Disneyland one isn't even open.
Yeah, so I think
Hollywood
by
Studios
default,
is the default winner.
yeah. Sorry, Disneyland.
The one other thing I was going to say about the Disneyland one is it was announced a little bit before the D23 Expo, maybe during the D23 Expo. DVC is going to get a member lounge at the launch bay.
Okay.
Disneyland Resort currently does not have a DVC member lounge. I've been to the one at Epcot because we have friends who are DVC members. It's where you can go, you just show your DVC membership card and you can charge your phone up there, sit down, have a snack. They have complimentary snacks. They have, I think, Coke freestyle machines or something like that, water bottles. It's above the Figment building. And you just go up there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I think Disneyland needs that. I don't know if that was the right space for it, but I understand that they're running out of options and out of space. So I guess it makes sense.
Yep.
Next up.
So, yeah, moving on, we are going to talk about Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run next. CJ, what is your favorite thing about this ride?
I like that it's easy to get on quickly with single rider. Most of the time, there's not that big of a wait for single rider. I mean, when you go on single rider, there's the line splits into two, so the capacity for single rider is higher than other single rider attractions, I would say.
Makes sense. My favorite thing is that you get to go inside the freaking Millennium Falcon and you get to pilot it and you get to do things inside the Millennium Falcon. That is so cool. That is like every Star Wars fan's dream come true. It's just so cool.
Yes, that
There's
is
my
cool.
nerd flag. Nerd flag flying again. Since the ride is and the queue, frankly, everything about these, except for like where they are in the land and when they opened, is identical between Disneyland and Hollywood Studios. So we're just kind of gonna do one talk about for each. We're not gonna like do a back and forth comparing X to Y for most of these.
Mm-hmm.
So opening date at Disneyland was May 31st, 2019.
Yeah, and at Hollywood Studios, it was August 29th, 2019, so a few months later.
In our fun facts, Hondo Onaka, who is kind of your smuggler guide, he is voiced by Jim Cummings, and Hondo is a character in the Clone Wars animated series. The Millennium Falcon in the queue is the first full-scale, fully built Millennium Falcon. The Play Disney Parks app has some interactivity with this ride, and there are over 200 buttons to play with on the ride. You should, while in the queue, keep an eye out for porg nests. And there's a fun little Easter egg on the ride. You can activate Chewbacca mode by everybody in your group pushing the buttons to activate their roles in a specific way, in a specific order. And when you activate Chewbacca mode, instead of Hondo giving you the ride narration, it's just Wookiee noises the entire time.
Yeah,
it's hysterical.
I haven't done that yet. I'm gonna have to get a group together to figure that out.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet either. I just watched the beginning of a YouTube video of it, and you just hear like Wookiee roaring, and it was hysterical.
Nice. So both parks, the ride is located in the same spot within Galaxy's Edge. It's in the back right corner, just past Oga's Cantina.
The queue starts outside, where it wraps around that life-size Millennium Falcon that we mentioned. You go through an engine room and mechanic shop and then you get to a command center where Hondo Onaka and R5P8 kind of give you the like ride brief and overview where they'd be like, hey, you're going to be smuggling some stuff for us. If the animatronic's not working, Onaka will appear on a TV screen and make an acknowledgement about and apologize for the remote communication system. Sorry, I can't be here in person. Guests are grouped into 6 riders, and they are called by group when they're ready to board. And while you're waiting for your group to board, you get to hang out inside the Millennium Falcon. It's so cool.
Yeah, that is kind of a cool waiting area. And I like that the new generation of Disney rides, Well, I feel like I shouldn't even say the new generation. They're borrowing from, go back to like Haunted Mansion, where you're walking through a hallway, you're going through an elevator, like you're seeing different things before you get to the ride. And I feel like they're taking that concept and just elevating it. They're putting you in a set and making you part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just continuing to do this in new and better ways.
Yeah.
I like that they're continuing that.
It's an experience that starts before the ride does. It's really cool.
So the music, this is kind of where it differs from traditional Disney rides, because most Disney rides have some form of background music going. There's not really any music going on. It's mostly like mechanical noises, like you would imagine that you would hear on the Millennium Falcon.
Or in a mechanic's shop.
Yes.
There's at one point you pass like a radio that's playing some music. The YouTube video that I watched, it was music that would like fit in like Book of Boba Fett or something. It just felt like atmospheric, like planet like music.
Yeah.
As far as you know what, I think you might need to do the ride vehicle info, and
Okay.
I'll cover the storyline again.
So there's 4 turntables with multiple cockpits per turntable. And if you watch the Imagineering story, they go over the like overview
How it works.
of how that works. Yeah. And each person on board is assigned a different role. There's a left pilot and right pilot, and then there's 2 gunners and 2 engineers. One pilot controls the left and right, the other pilot controls up and down. Gunners are doing the shooting, which you can do manual or automatic aiming, and then there's engineers, which fix all the problems.
So the story is that Hondo gives you a mission to steal cargo from the First Order TIE fighters. Your role that you're given, pilot, gunner, engineer, and how good you are at it determines the success of the mission. Do you make it? Do you steal one thing of cargo? Do you steal both things of cargo? Groups who work faster and better are given additional tasks on the mission and or get additional dialogue from Hondo.
When you exit, the damage done to your ship during your mission impacts the lighting in the exit corridor when you leave your little cockpit. You head out of the attraction through long hallways, really long hallways, prepare to walk, and back into Batu right next to the attraction's entrance near stroller parking.
There is a 38-inch height requirement, and it is open during fireworks.
It's also open during the rain, and they both offer lightning lane.
Single rider is available, but it's sometimes unavailable, so you should just double check that.
Yep.
Showdown? Is there really? CJ is making a face that tells me she has an opinion.
I do.
And always have an opinion.
I might be able to sway you on this one.
Okay.
I think Disneyland's is better, and it has to do with this ride at night.
I haven't been on it at night.
Have you been in Galaxy's Edge at night at all?
Yes.
Think about where the fireworks are.
I've been at Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios at night.
Aha. Okay, so at Disneyland, the fireworks go off like behind Galaxy's Edge, behind Millennium Falcon, so you can get a very cool view of Smuggler's Run, Millennium Falcon, with the fireworks in the background. Hollywood Studios, you don't get that view, because if you're looking at the Millennium Falcon and the fireworks are going off, the fireworks are behind you, so you have to turn around. So I think the way that they planned the design of the land and where the ride is located is better at Disneyland. I just think it looks cool. The Millennium Falcon with fireworks behind it. I mean, you can Google pictures of it and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And you're not going to get shots like that at Hollywood Studios just based on where the ride is situated in the park.
Okay, that seems fair enough to me. Yeah. Okay. I don't have any reason to disagree with you. So I will say, okay, Disneyland, sure. Disneyland can win this round.
You should Google pictures of it because it's very cool. And now we take a brief pause while Alli Googles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's really cool. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, yeah, Disneyland can have it.
Yep. Yeah. The one thing though, if you're gonna watch the fireworks in Galaxy's Edge, there's no fireworks music back there. They keep the like the Galaxy's Edge sound effects that they have playing in the land.
You know what? I'm okay with that though.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Rise of the Resistance. CJ, tell me about your favorite thing about Rise of the Resistance.
I like that this ride and queue has so many different elements to it. You know, the queue has a lot going for it, but the ride also does. It feels like a modern day Indiana Jones.
Okay, interesting.
Why are you saying it like that?
I'm just thinking about like you calling it a modern day Indiana Jones when Star Wars and Indiana Jones original movies came out, what, within 10 years of each other?
Modern day Indiana Jones ride.
Okay.
Because
I went back to movies.
think about the queue for Indiana Jones and how like you go into the temple and there's some interactive things. Some, yeah, I know some of them don't work anymore. And then you go and watch the movie, you know, like there's just a lot going on. And the ride
Really
itself,
well themed.
the ride has a lot going on, you know, the boulder and the doors and the bridge and everything. And yeah, some of the effects don't work anymore, but that's what I'm saying. This feels like a modern day Indiana Jones. There's a lot of elements to it that make it a good ride, but elevated. You know, Indiana Jones was like 1994 or 95, something like that. So
90s, yeah.
30 years later, it's like just an elevated experience.
So what you're saying is Disney Indiana Jones needs the Rise of the Resistance treatment.
I think it does. You know, this is kind of going off on a tangent, but if you've been on it recently, it's not as good as it used to be. I don't even think the doors in the beginning, they don't move anymore.
I don't think those have moved for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And like the effects don't always work and it's like, come on, like this has the capability to be a really great attraction. I think they could add more interactivity to the queue to really bring you, the viewer, into the story a little more. But yeah, going back to Rise, it's just to me it feels like a modern day elevated Indiana Jones.
Well, there is going to be a new Indiana Jones movie this year, apparently. So maybe that'll be a little push that they need. You know, it is the fourth Indiana Jones movie. It's definitely the fourth one. Um, so maybe, you know, since there hasn't been an Indiana Jones movie in so long, maybe that'll be a nice little push for them to do something to bring the ride up a little bit. Anyways, that's a whole nother Harrison Ford tangent. That's how they're connected. Harrison Ford. Gotta love it. My favorite thing about Rise of the Resistance is that it's not just a ride, it's a whole experience. It's an entire experience. It's so immersive. The whole thing, the whole story, everything. I love everything about Rise of the Resistance. There is 2 seconds of this ride that I do not enjoy. And if you've been on it and you've listened to me talking about rides that I don't like, you know exactly what it is, but I could get over it because this ride is so good. At Disneyland, it opened on January 17th, 2020, which is unfortunate.
Yes. I was there opening day. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this. This was back when you had to be in the park to get a boarding group. So I got there at like 5 a.m. to guarantee that I would be in the park to get a boarding group. And I know mom showed up at like 7:30. Of course, she got a boarding group with me. I was the foolish one. But no, there were a whole bunch of us there super early. And I just, you know, I parked in Toy Story, got on a bus or whatever. And I sat in the fire station because it was freezing cold and that had a little bit of warmth. And I brought a book. And it was just exciting to be there with everybody cheering when they got a boarding group on opening day.
And you don't even like Star Wars.
No, but I like going on opening day for things. That is very exciting to me. Hollywood Studios Rise of the Resistance opened a few weeks before Disneyland's did on December 5th, 2019.
So there are 50 stormtroopers in the hangar bay, and make sure you look closely at them. The cast members who put you in groups before you board may mess with you, which is similar to what the Haunted Mansion cast members do. The ride has several elements, and it's really a 360-degree experience. And the ride itself has 65 audio animatronics, which, wow, frankly. There were 6 actors from the films who reprised their role for the ride. There were more than 5 million lines of code written to have this ride operate, which that is a massive undertaking. Like, way to go, Imagineers who did that. This fun fact is really, really silly, but I like it. The ride building required the largest concrete pour in Disney Parks history.
That's very random.
It's so random, but I just think that's really interesting. Also, it was the first ride at Disney to use the virtual queue system.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say FastPass is kind of a virtual queue, but I feel like virtual queue is a separate category than FastPass.
Yeah, boarding groups. You don't get
Yeah.
a boarding group from a FastPass. You get that from a virtual queue. So
Yeah. Okay, so the location of this, so they're both located in the same part within the land. It's on the left side. It's the first ride you see on the left side. At Disneyland, you'd be entering from the Critter Country entrance, and at Hollywood Studios, it's the first ride you see when you enter from like the Muppets side.
the queue takes you through an ancient cave system where there's an underground resistance control center. You can see Star Wars props and costumes and weaponry and other things on display in cargo boxes and little cargo cages, I guess. And you've got futuristic maps on futuristic screens as well.
Yes. So the music, again, Galaxy's Edge really doesn't have music except in Oga's Cantina. It's a lot of sound effects and atmospheric noises to make it sound like you're in space, and that continues here, especially in the cave. They make it sound like you're in a space cave. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they do that, but that's the best way to describe it. And then they have Star Wars universe messages and announcements going on, as if you're part of the Resistance and you're hearing messages basically. Every now and then there's some mechanical noises and like dripping water noises, some dialogue between the characters, that kind of stuff.
And tell us about the ride vehicle, because I'm going to do the storyline.
So when they group you, you're given like a color to stand on, and then you go sit in the corresponding row. You know, usually they tell you row 1, row 2. This time they'll say go stand on the blue line or red line or whatever. And then when you go to your vehicle, you look for the blue light or the red light. So they seat 2 rows of 4, so a total of 8 in the ride vehicle, and there's a droid on the front helping you.
Yeah. So story goes as follows, and this is a generally spoiler-free storyline. I'm not going to give you a turn-by-turn reenactment of the ride. I'm going to give you basically the premise. So you're part of the Resistance, and you've been given a mission to rendezvous with General Leia Organa. You board a transport ship, which is then attacked by a First Order Star Destroyer. Your transport ship is pulled into the Stormtrooper hangar. You are detained by the First Order, but your cell is broken into. Finn and the Resistance set you free. You board a hijacked First Order fleet transport piloted by that R5 droid CJ mentioned. And from there, it is a harrowing journey to make it to your escape pod.
Yes, and once you escape through the escape pod, of course, Disney rides don't end in tragedy here. You disembark at an outdoor but covered area. It's like indoor outdoors. You head up a walkway leading back to the main area of Galaxy's Edge, past some merchandise carts where you can buy some merchandise to remember your time on Rise of the Resistance.
So I just want to backtrack a second. You said that Disney rides don't end in tragedy. However, I present to you Mr. Toad.
Oh yeah, that was tragedy.
For the most part, Disney rides do not end in tragedy.
True.
Anyways, Rise of the Resistance, 40-inch height requirement, open during the fireworks and rain.
They both offer Lightning Lane, however, it is not part of Genie Plus. You can purchase it as an individual Lightning Lane, and I know at Hollywood Studios it goes very, very, very quickly. I'm not sure about Disneyland. They don't offer single rider.
Which I totally understand. Given the way this queue works, it would not. It's not. I don't know where they'd go to a single rider.
Yeah, I don't know where they'd go. They would skip the whole pre-show, I guess.
That I just don't feel like you could. It makes no sense. Given the whole experience of the ride, it just wouldn't work. CJ, it's showdown time. We've laid out the facts. I assume you have an opinion. You've had one for everything so far.
I don't really have an opinion on this one.
You know what? I actually think I do. And
Okay.
it might be a little bit weird. But hear me out. I am going to go to Disneyland because the transition from Critter Country to Galaxy's Edge is less weird than the transition from Muppet Land to Galaxy's Edge.
You're right. You know what? I thought about that when I was initially typing stuff for our outline, and I thought that transition from Critter Country to Rise of the Resistance is a really nice transition. I remember thinking that.
Yeah.
Because,
there's a lot of like nature areas over there. Splash Mountain is over there.
And you go into like a cave and it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Versus Muppets.
Yeah, all these buildings, and then you go under like a bridge tunnel,
that's how they try to make it work. And it reminds me of the tunnel that's in Roger Rabbit. Yeah. And I'm like, what is happening here? It just feels like an amalgamation of too many things, you know? Yeah, and you're right. I remember thinking, now that you say it, I remember thinking that earlier, like a while ago when I was typing this.
So that covers all of our attractions that we're going to talk about. Obviously, there's the lightsaber building and the Build a Droid workshop, and there's Oga's Cantina, but we're not going to get into those, at least not this episode. Maybe in a future episode, sometime down the line, we can talk about those, but we're not going to get into that. But we are going to talk a little bit about Galaxy's Edge versus Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, I feel like the land itself, because they are almost exactly the same, it's worth talking about. And there's so much to do. It's almost like an attraction itself.
Yes. My husband has said that he could spend an entire park day in Galaxy's Edge.
And I could not. I could just go do the rides and leave.
Well, you know, two types of people. You have a Star Wars fan, and you have an opposed to everything Star Wars person.
I'm not a fan of rides, basically, is what it boils down to.
All right. Well, let's talk about opening dates for Galaxy's Edge. Disneyland, May 31st, 2019.
And Hollywood Studios was a couple months after that, on August 29th, 2019.
It is at the back of Disneyland, behind the Rivers of America and Frontierland, between Toontown and Critter Country, behind the train tracks.
In Hollywood Studios, it's at the back of the park between Toy Story Land and Grand Avenue. Grand Avenue is that Muppets area, but it also has Baseline Tap House, which is like, I don't know, they serve like bar food and beer.
Isn't Mama Melrose's back there too? Somewhere over there?
Yes. It's by the Muppets, kind of. Yeah.
All right. What you can find at Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland.
And Hollywood Studios.
And Hollywood Studios. It's the same list?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You have Rise of the Resistance, Smuggler's Run, Oga's Cantina, the Droid Depot, Savi's Workshop, which is where you build the lightsabers, the Milk Stand, Ronto Roasters, and Black Spire Outpost shops.
One thing you can find at Hollywood Studios that you can't find at Disneyland is because because Walt Disney World has the Galactic Star Cruiser, there's like a docking port, I don't know what the right word is, for the guests from the Galactic Star Cruiser. Obviously, that's not used all the time, only for a short window, and it's not open to everybody, only the people on the Star Cruiser. But that's, if you're heading towards Oga's, it's like, if you're looking at Oga's, it's kind of to the right over there. At Disneyland, it's like a big blank wall that serves as a photo op, essentially. It's over that way.
Disneyland has 3 entries to Galaxy's Edge. There is one past the Hungry Bear in Critter Country, which will take you close to Rise of the Resistance. And there are 2 on the pathway between Frontierland and Fantasyland.
Yeah, Hollywood Studios, there's only 2 entries to Galaxy's Edge. One is by Grand Avenue, just past Muppet Vision. That's the one that puts you by Rise of the Resistance. And the other one's by Toy Story Land, past Alien Swirling Saucers. That puts you by Smuggler's Run.
All right, let's hit some of the differences in the park.
Yeah, so one of the biggest differences that caught my eye really quickly, I mean, if you've been listening for a while, you know that I moved to Florida from California. So one of the things I noticed was the paint colors are slightly different in Florida. And, I'd guess it's probably because things just fade differently because of the Florida sun being a little bit more intense. It gets humid here and it rains a lot here. So they have to plan for different elements hitting the paint differently.
The various ships and speeders are located in different places throughout Galaxy's Edge. So where you might see one ship in one spot in Disneyland, that same ship might be in a different spot in Hollywood Studios, or it might be a completely different ship. It might not be there at all.
We talked about this earlier, the fireworks viewing point at Disneyland. If you're looking at Millennium Falcon, you have a great view of the fireworks right behind the Falcon. Whereas at Hollywood Studios, first of all, they don't even do fireworks every night. Some night they don't have fireworks, just depends what's going on. Although now that Fantasmic's back, there's something going on every night at least.
Mhm.
But the fireworks are not because of where the fireworks are launched, you're just not facing that area essentially. At Disneyland, the fireworks are launched from the back of the park. Hollywood Studios, they're launched more towards the center of the park. So you're going to have to be turning your back away from Galaxy's Edge to see the fireworks. So the view from Disneyland when you're standing in Galaxy's Edge looking at the fireworks is just so much better.
Another difference, as CJ mentioned previously, the Galactic Star Cruiser. It's a thing at Hollywood Studios if you have like a couple grand to spare per person. It is not a thing at Disneyland at all.
Yeah. And with that Galactic Star Cruiser, if you're a Star Cruiser guest, there's more interactivity for you in the land, from what I understand, like with the datapad games and stuff like that. You can do missions in the park and whatever. I don't think it's anything I'll ever do, because if I had that kind of money, I would not choose to spend it on a 2-night Star Wars hotel. Another difference is there's more characters walking around at Disneyland. They recently got Mandalorian and Grogu walking around, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I can't tell if this is a difference that occurred because of COVID. I don't know, because I haven't been to Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland since the parks reopened. But I remember being at Disneyland and seeing Chewbacca like pretending to fix up a ship that was sitting around. I've never seen that at Hollywood Studios. I don't know if that has ever happened even pre-COVID at Hollywood Studios. I don't know. But I get the feeling that there's just more characters in general walking around in Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. And I think a problem that Hollywood Studios has is they built this Galactic Star Cruiser that's replaying the same story every couple days for new guests. And if these guests are going into the park to continue playing the story, they can't bring in characters like Mandalorian and Grogu because it breaks whatever story they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, Star Cruiser is great for people who can experience it, but it's kind of to the detriment of the growth of the land, if that makes sense.
I do think that makes sense. And I also think that a recurring theme that we have on this podcast is Disneyland does characters better.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's also a factor there.
Yeah. And to be fair, I feel like the characters in Galaxy's Edge, even at Disneyland, they get mobbed a lot more than characters on like Main Street and stuff like that. I think maybe the Main Street character attendants just do a better job of managing the crowds. I don't know. Yeah, that's just been my observation.
Well, I think another part of that might be that the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is still kind of the new hotness.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to get a picture for the gram or for the TikTok or for the interwebs, whatever.
Right.
So, yeah.
Could be.
So, that's a little bit about Galaxy's Edge. Do we have opinions on which one is better and which one makes more sense in which park? For me, I don't think I can say that one is better than the other because they are, for all intents and purposes, the same. I mean, they have some of those minor differences that we talked about, but
I think the Disneyland one is pulled off better because of its location, and we kind of touched on it when we were talking about Rise of the Resistance. I think the transition from Frontierland to Galaxy's Edge and the transition from Critter Country to Galaxy's Edge is done really well, versus the transition from Toy Story Land to Galaxy's Edge and the transition from like Muppets / Grand Courtyard or whatever it's called is really weird. Grand Avenue, I'm sorry, is really weird. Like those transitions are very odd and very jarring.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you on that. Hollywood Studios, you're bouncing from movie set to movie set to movie set as you cross these lands, and you get into Galaxy's Edge, and you're like, all the cast members are like, this isn't a movie set. This is where we live. This
Right.
is real life, and it doesn't really fit in there. That said, it's the only park where I think it makes sense to go. I wouldn't have put it in Magic Kingdom. It doesn't make sense at Epcot or Animal Kingdom either.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I feel like maybe it could have gone into Animal Kingdom if you didn't have Pandora and you incorporated more like Star Wars flora and fauna.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know where else you would have put it at Disney World. I think they did the best with what they had, but it's still really weird for that to be the only place that, no, this isn't a movie set, this is real life.
Yeah, I think that's weird too. Like I think Disneyland pulls it off better than Hollywood Studios does in terms of location, but I still don't think it makes sense in Disneyland either. I think thematically, I guess it makes more sense in Hollywood Studios, but thematically it doesn't make sense in Disneyland to me still. Because I just think like you look at the lands of Hollywood Studios and you've got like Toy Story Land right there, and I know it's called Grand Avenue now, but the only attraction there is a Muppet attraction and like Pizza Rizzo and Mama Melrose's, which I know is not tied to anything, and Baseline Tap House. I mean, that's for all intents and purposes, it's a Muppet land. They're more specifically tied to IPs, whereas Disneyland, you've got like Fantasyland, Frontierland, Tomorrowland, Toontown. They're not really tied to one specific thing. I guess you could say Mickey and Friends is one specific thing. Well,
Yeah, but that's just Toontown.
they've got Roger Rabbit in there too.
Yeah.
And Gadget. Well, I guess Gadget's been kicked out now.
Rude.
But I know. So to me, it doesn't really make sense there. But it doesn't make sense in California Adventure either.
Yeah.
But then
It makes way more sense
Adventures
in
Campus. So, you know.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But I think Disneyland provided more space than Avengers
Yes.
Campus would have. So I think
Well,
they
I don't
needed
know
that
because
space.
had they, hear me out. Picture Avengers Campus and Hollywoodland becoming Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, but then you'd even have even more uproar about Tower of Terror.
Yeah, but then they could build Avengers Campus behind Tower of Terror.
I mean, I haven't been to Avengers Campus, so I don't have any perspective on what this, like, how big that land is. I mean, I know obviously I've been to a Bugs Land, but okay, a Bugs Land didn't fit into California Adventure either.
No,
Like,
I think California Adventure is the land where random IPs go.
okay.
So I feel like it should have gone
But
there.
there's precedent. There was precedent to have Star Wars in Disneyland with Star Tours.
I don't know. It just seems so weird.
I think it fits better in Disneyland than it would have fit in California Adventure.
And I don't think it fits either one. I think they probably should have just kept it at Hollywood Studios.
And then all the Californian Star Wars fans get mad because Florida's getting something again that California's never going to see.
Yeah.
No, I like that it's on both coasts. They saw how much hype Star Wars is still getting, frankly, and they said, okay, we need to, if it was only in one park, the wait times would be even worse. Like, they made it better to have two.
I don't know what the solution is, but it just seems weird to have one land based off one IP in Disneyland. I just don't think that's right. I think if they're going to do that, just put it in California Adventure. We all know California Adventure is not about California anymore. Blow something up in California Adventure and put it there instead. That's what I say.
I disagree. I think they made the best use of the space. They really took out a minimal number of things.
I understand there's a space issue, but in my perfect world, it would have ended up in California Adventure. And they just need to rename that park at this point. Name it like Disney Movie Adventure or something like that, because really that's what it is now, except for Grizzly Peak.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of Pixar. There's Little Mermaid. There's
Avengers,
there's a
Monsters Inc.
lot.
There's a lot of Pixar in that park.
Yeah.
It's becoming Pixar.
Oh, and Cars too. I completely forgot about Cars.
Yeah. It's like Pixar Park plus Marvel and Little Mermaid.
Well, we've gotten off on a tangent here. I think we should work on wrapping up this episode instead of discussing the potential rename of California Adventure. But if you have opinions on that, let us know. You can reach out to us on Instagram. That's the best way to reach out to us. Park2ParkPod with the number 2. Though we do also have an email, park2parkpod@gmail.com. And we are allegedly on Twitter at Park2ParkPod, again with the number 2. Do you like Star Wars? Tell me. Do you not like Star Wars? Don't tell me. Tell CJ. Anyways, subscribe, leave us a review, watch us on YouTube. You can see my beautiful Leia buns that I donned for this episode if you're watching us on YouTube. And yeah, CJ, what are we talking about next episode?
Well, it is a thrill when you go downhill, when you're riding on a mountain of your own free will. When you're zipping in a dash on a dare and splash. When you're riding on a mountain and you go splish splash.
Zip, zip, zip.
Zip, 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 zip. I think I got the lyrics right. I'm not sure.
It seemed like you were consulting a page that had them on there. So
I am not. I will share my screen with you.
You don't have to share the screen. That's okay. But if you didn't pick it up by CJ's beautiful 90s rap, we are going to be talking about Splash Mountain. What day does it close? I know it's going to be closed by the time this episode comes out. What day does it close?
I believe January 22nd is the last day.
Yeah, so it'll have been closed for a couple weeks by the time this Star Wars episode comes out. It'll have been closed for even longer by the time the Splash Mountain episode comes out. That said, we are going to talk about Splash Mountain as it was before it was closed for the Tiana retheming.
For Tiana Mountain. Can we play taps when we do Splash Mountain's episode?
If it's royalty free and you can find me a copy of it, this is the Star Wars episode still.
I was just warming up my trumpet.
You don't have a trumpet.
Okay.
Anyways, next time, Splash Mountain. Did I miss anything in our sign off, CJ?
I think we're good.
All right. Have a wonderful night, day, week, month, whatever you're celebrating. CJ's running a marathon in like 5 days, so cheer her on for that.
Oh, gosh.
She will have completed it long before this episode comes out, but go CJ! Thanks everyone. Bye!